I spoke to Ashley Ryan just before she boarded a flight after she was in Boston, and I asking her all kinds of questions about the interview and stuff. But I asked her about watching warm up because there's a video of her she's posted of Igor taking his lap, and I was like, "Were you in tears?" And she's like, "I'm bawling," and I'm like, "So when did you start and stop?" And she's like, "I don't even remember," basically. So for her, it was such an emotional night. And I just think of what it's like as a parent or a billet family and all that stuff, of all the time you've helped to help get that player to the National Hockey League, or what that moment's like. It's right. Because Matt, you played in the NHL, but I'm going to guarantee your parents were just as pumped to see you skate around, right? Like it was an emotional time for them as well. It takes, as they say, a village.
Yeah. No, you nailed it right there. And the people, and it's funny because I mean, they do get a ton of praise, but I don't think most people don't understand how important it is to have a good billet family and have these people support you. And it's such a selfless thing to do, right? It's not your own son, it's not your kid, but you're willing to take on a teenager, like a teenage guy, roughly 16 to 17 years of age, and just bring him into your personal space in your home. And all of a sudden he's a part of it. So I had an excellent experience with that. The McInerney family in London, when I played in London, Ontario, and for the Knights, and they made it enjoyable. They made me feel like I was part of their family, and that, that transition as a 17 or a 16-year-old, when you're leaving home at such an early age, it's crucial. And then to give a little love to my parents. I mean, we're making $110 every 2 weeks, right? So my mom would wire me money all the time, and never mind all the sacrifices both my parents, who were both, I want to say middle class workers all their lives. They worked really hard, and they were both shift workers. Yet they always took my brother and I to practice first thing in the morning. There was always food on the table. They always taking us to tournaments. So hockey parents are special. And Wally, Craig, you guys are going through it now. I'm going to do the same thing for my kids. It's such an incredible experience, and there's so much to gain from being in sports, team sports as kids, that I encourage parents to put their kids in it, because you learn so many valuable lessons along the way. So yeah, I mean, it's such a selfless thing, as you mentioned, that Ashley has done. And I mean, I commend them for it.
Matthew didn't negotiate a good deal, because Igor was getting like $329.
I know. And it's funny because, like, when I was playing in London and I retired, when I left London, I should say, at 19, I only played 3 years in junior. You'd always hear stories on how, London pays its players, and they're like an NHL team where, did you hear Patrick Kane was making X amount? I'm thinking, like, I never saw a dime. Like, where was all this money? I could barely afford to put gas in my car, let alone, make a lot of money. So again, I think there were issues with that. I don't know how you navigate through there, because we're talking about high school kids. I don't think they should be making a ton of money. It wouldn't be sustainable for the league. But I do think there are some issues there that need to be resolved. I don't know. I think, did they fix that, Wally? Remember there was a big court battle between the OHL and players?
I don't know where that's at. I do remember it. I don't know if
I know it's
somewhere.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, the players won, if I'm not mistaken, an increase, but I don't know if it's being argued or appealed or whatever it is.
By the way, I'm not advocating for any of that. I'm just saying that when you're making $110, like I've been through it myself, it's very hard. It's not sustainable.
You should check Corey Perry. I think he was getting it all.
Could be. Yeah. But anyway. Corey Perry signed. Like, I still remember Corey Perry and Junior, like, he had the big pickup truck that he had bought, and that's because he had a big signing bonus in that lockout year, his last year junior with us when we won the Memorial Cup. So he was already ahead of the game, and all of us pigeons, like, I was still driving an old Toyota Camry, and I thought it was pretty cool. And eating at Eastside Mario's as much as I could. But guys like Perry were making all the big bucks. And we had a returning NHL player that year. Dan Fritchie at the time was an NHL player that we had brought down during the NHL lockout year. And he was another guy that had, NHL salary under his belt. So an eye-opening experience.
Did Corey Perry have nice rims on the truck? Did he do it all up?
I don't think so. No, I think, the chrome rims were a thing back then. And no, he didn't have chrome rims. He just had like one of those really nice big F-150s. And, as a young guy, you're thinking like, man, I want that. I was very envious.
Did you have a car? Like, I want this as my first car?
No. Well, yes. I always wanted an Escalade. That was like the early 2000s, like everyone was driving Escalades. Yeah. But I think, so, me being me and a little frugal, I ended up buying a used Chevy Trailblazer was my first actual purchase. I was in Syracuse playing in upstate New York. And I look back now and I'm like, I should have just splurged a little more and I could have upgraded that thing. But anyway, that just goes to show that I was very modest and responsible financially, Wally.
Yeah, cheap is good too. That works.
Fair enough.